Hello, my name is Sansere, and I want to welcome you to my channel. I felt it was time to share my story as a former Jehovah's Witness. I hope that you will join me as I embark upon this journey, and I thank you for watching. So, in the meantime, enjoy. Hi. So, I'm going to be telling my story as a former Jehovah's Witness. So, here goes. I was born into the religion, third generation. Um, my mother um, married twice. She's actually the one who was the catalyst, even though I'm third generation. She's the one who was the catalyst of um, my family getting involved with Jehovah's Witnesses at a young age. Now, in order for you to really fully comprehend the story, I need to go into a little bit of her background so you understand the dynamics of the family and how we all got involved in this religion. So my mother, she was a teenager, and she was the oldest child, and she was a girl, of course. And as the daughter, the eldest daughter, having several brothers and sisters who younger than her, she was kind of the second mother in the family because she had to help my grandmother, raising her children. And so my mother was very involved in that process. And so she was a teen, she had a lot of friends. And she especially had a family of friends. There were 10 children in that family, and she was, very close to them. So one day they eventually got involved with Jehovah's Witnesses, and at some point became clear that she would need to get involved with Jehovah's Witnesses as well, if she really wanted to maintain. To be allowed to be maintaining a relationship with them. And so she started learning a little bit about it, and she liked the way that they were learning about the Bible and what the Bible had to say. And so she was attracted to it from that perspective. And then, as a result, she got involved and got baptized. Interestingly enough, she decided to share this information with her mother, and as a result, her mother got involved as well. And she got baptized about a year or so later, after my mother did. So that's actually how it all started. My mother was kind of the person that actually got our family, her siblings and my grandmother involved. My grandfather was, he was in and out of the house, so he wasn't really into religion at all. So, but it was mainly my mother and my grandmother. So as a result, my mother and my father, who she met through the witnesses, um, she, at that time they used to go to a lot of social gatherings, and so she met him, and they liked each other, and they eventually got married. They were both young, as usual, which is very common in the Jehovah's Witness religion, because there's really no way to have a relationship with someone unless you're married. Anything remotely serious, you have to get married. So they got married, they liked each other, and therefore I came along. And so but the marriage did not last. My mother became a single parent, so that was not part of her plan, of course. So she was raising me, and at that time, she was in nursing school, I think, at the point where she had to raise me on her own, and I was very young. And so, I was like 3 years old. And so they got divorced, and my mother went on to nursing school, which was almost taboo at that time. It wasn't a disfellowshipping offense, but it was something that people were like, oh, in nursing school? Oh, why are you doing that? In the new system, we won't really need nurses and so on. But she knew she had to maintain a living and get something where she would be able to support her child and her life. And so she was very level-headed that way, and she was kind of a leader in the family, and so she wanted to set the example for her siblings and other people. So that's what she did. And so she went on to nursing school, and then eventually went back to school, to college, to complete her bachelor's degree. So, and the other side note I want to say to that is that as an African American person, she realized the challenges that would be in place if she was, uneducated and not able to really get a decent job, as many of you know that without that college degree at that time, and even up until maybe recently, there's really not much that you could do. Nowadays, things have changed, of course, dramatically since that time, but, she had to be pragmatic. And so she got, she got her degree eventually. And then as time went on, I got older, and as a youngster and a teenager, I didn't have a lot of... I didn't really feel bad too much. I wasn't made to feel like an outsider in school. There were a couple occasions where, I remember being in the assembly in high school and not putting my hand up to salute the flag, and pretty much most people didn't really realize that I wasn't putting my hand up to salute the flag. I stood up like you're supposed to stand up, because I know if I sat down, obviously it would be very noticeable. But I stood up, to be respectful, but I did not salute the flag. And not too many people really paid attention to that. No one really called me out on it, and no one tried to embarrass me or anything like that. So I didn't really suffer a lot of ostracism in school. There may have been a couple of times where there were birthday celebrations, and I didn't really say anything. I just kind of, I was there. I didn't really say anything. My mother really never really wasn't strict about, oh, I got to tell these teachers to let them know or anything. She didn't go through all of that. And I didn't really say much about it. If there was a birthday party, there was a birthday party, And there were times when I did have a piece of cake at the end. I didn't say anything to anyone, and I didn't really feel it was a big deal. So that's kind of why my younger years as a Jehovah's Witness, I didn't feel, really ostracized. And I didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong, and I didn't have like this guilty conscience or anything like that. And again, my mother, who was the main person involved with my education in school and was really more involved with the schools, she didn't really press the issue. She didn't say, hey, make sure that she's not in the class when you do this. She didn't do all of that. She wasn't the type of person to make announcements about, oh, well, I'm this religion and you need to, she didn't do any of that. So I was fortunate in that way, where I didn't have that heavy feeling of, being left out or being an outsider. So as time went on, in high school was, somewhat uneventful, but I had decided early on, as a youngster, I don't know how old I was. I must have been around 10 or 12 years old. We were always going to the meetings, and I decided in my young mind that I'm going to have friends, regardless of what religion they're in. I had made a mental note of, people being disfellowship for different things, and I said, how am I supposed to have a friend who's a witness, and at the same time, if something happens, they do something wrong, or I do something wrong, and then suddenly they're not my friend? Like, my young mind couldn't understand that. They can't really be my friend then. So I was a very I was a critical thinker early on in my life. That didn't make sense to me. I said, I'm always going to have friends from wherever. And in fact, I think without realizing it, I decided I'm going to have friends who are not in this religion so that I can maintain relationships. Because that's what friendship is really, that's what, in my young mind, that's what it meant. Friends are friends forever, And so that was partly what allowed me to not feel, again, like an outsider. And I know many people have had different experiences than that. It's been very much the opposite of that. So anyway, my mother remarried after going back a little bit, back to when I was a youngster. She remarried, and she met someone. She went to serve in what we would call where the need was great. That was the expression. If you want to go serve where the need is great. And that just basically means that if you are able to get your circumstances in such a way that you can leave the area and go to an area where they really need to expand the preaching work, which is essentially trying to recruit other people into your religion. So Jehovah's Witnesses, that's what they do. So that was one of the things. So she was what you would call a regular pioneer. I don't remember the hour requirement at that time. I think it was 90 or 100 hours, 110 hours, something like that. But she went to serve where the need is great in the South. And we did that for 1 year. And then, when she had come back, she met my stepfather, and they, formed a relationship, got married. And so he relatively quickly, not too long after, became an elder. And so as I'm growing up, when I got to high school, that's when things started to shift. Because, it was apparent that, here I am growing up and I need to make a decision. I hadn't gotten baptized, and, the interesting thing is that, because I am the daughter of an elder at this point, it wasn't real pressure on me, but at the same time, occasionally my mother would say, are you thinking about, getting baptized, or, so that came up, not too often. And I kind of was reserved. Something didn't feel quite right. But I was so young, I didn't really know. So I says, okay, well, I thought to myself, well, I don't really want to get baptized right away. Let me think about it some more. And then, over the years, my mother would study with me, and my stepfather was involved with all of his elder activities and such, so he didn't really study with me. But my mother mainly did that. He would do family study once in a while. And it was, he tried to make it consistent, but it wasn't very consistent all the time. Because he had so much on his plate. And so my mother, again, she would ask me sometimes, mention it, maybe, every 6 or 8 months or so, she would say, make a comment or a question, or, did you ever think about getting baptized? What are your thoughts? That kind of thing. And at the same time, she was really pro education, so she did encourage me in terms of education. So I eventually got baptized. I was 17, which was kind of late. But I eventually got baptized at 17, and so I was preparing, to go to college. Yeah, I was definitely going to do that. And because at the end of the day, I was young. I was like, I got to make a life for myself. And so I did. So I had to prepare myself, of course, because I knew the questions would be coming. Well, what are you taking? And, oh, you're going to college. Really? Okay, So those questions were going to start coming, and I had to prepare myself, and so I did. When the question came up as to, what are you taking? I said, oh, I'm taking computers. And, oh, really? Really? What do you plan to do? And there were a couple of Bethelites who also asked the question as well. And so I said, well, I plan to, maybe I'm going to consider, applying to Bethel. Yeah, because, they need computer programmers, they need someone to help out with their new systems and such. So I was ready with an answer. But the truth is, I did not really like what I saw in terms of the lifestyle of and how they were living, and I just knew that I was not going to be giving my time freely like that. I need to support myself. And I really believe in that, and I kept it real. So so anyway, the Bethelites, they accepted that. They were kind of like, okay, she's planning the computers. There's really not much they could say, right? Because obviously that's a field where it was, something that was very valuable, and I could actually potentially be useful to Bethel, even though I'm a female, you know. So anyway, that was my response, and so that's what I said. So as time went on, though, however, I did graduate from college, and I had to get my bearings in terms of what I wanted to do with my life. And as time went on, I really started thinking about, thinking about more about my personal life, and I need to really move things along. And I was not attracted to anyone in the Jehovah's Witnesses organization. There were different suitors, but I just did not feel anything, and I just said, there's no way I'm going to get involved with someone, be told that just because we're talking or communicating that A, we had to get engaged, and B, we would have to get married, because otherwise there's going to be some concern. And it's like, I don't even know people in this organization that I'm attracted to. And in fact, I don't even think we can even have a conversation, because the reality is I am moving forward with my life and getting my education and doing the things I have to do to maintain a decent lifestyle outside of Watchtower. So it's not about being in this organization. My life is not built around that. And many of the people involved, these men, some of them were Bethelites, and it's like, I'm not living that life. To be real, to keep it real, I am not living like that. I am not going to be in there married to somebody, cleaning I don't know, doing whatever. And there's nothing wrong with people who don't mind doing that work, but I don't want to do that work, and that's okay. Everyone has their calling. So I decided that I'm going to start dating. That's right. I'm going to start dating, and I did that. And they're now going to be Jehovah's Witnesses. Oh well. My parents were, I guess, by some would say they were more liberal. My father didn't really get involved too much. I think he wanted to be in a position where he didn't really want to get involved with what I was going to be doing. I had, planned. I had moved out at a certain point, and I was, meeting different people and dating and so on. And so eventually, of course, I got married. And it was, I was married almost 10 years, not quite, but almost 10 years. And then that marriage, unfortunately, and I'll go into this in another video actually, is that whole marriage thing. That was a very traumatic event in my life. My husband had kind of deteriorated toward the end of the marriage, became very deeply depressed, and has started to have different health issues, and I think it was all part of him being depressed and very upset, and I had to start thinking about, well, if you're going to go down this path, what am I, this is not healthy. This is not going to be a healthy relationship. I can't help you if you're, you have to want to get help, And so as time went on, it just got worse, and then he decided he wanted to end our lives. And I'll talk about that in another video. That's a whole nother dimension. I'll talk about that. But anyway, that happened, and then from that point, I started to rebuild my life, and it has been an interesting journey. But keeping on track with what I was doing with Jehovah's Witnesses, I had kind of left. It was kind of like a two-step leaving process, because initially I kind of left when I started dating and stuff. I started going out. I would go to the meetings here and there. I didn't totally disconnect, but I kind of did like a very slow fade. So as time went on, I did my slow fade, and I would, my mother would encourage me to go to the meetings and different things, and so I would occasionally, I would go to the memorial here and there, but I really wasn't interested in the Jehovah's Witnesses anymore. I didn't have anything specific that I would say that, I don't like there was nothing really specific that I can point to, but I did know that I wanted to be in charge of my life. No one's going to tell me how to live my life. That was a decision I even knew as a youngster, so I guess I have some strong-willed traits like my mother, who was somewhat strong-willed, but she was so entrenched in the religion, because remember, she got involved as a teenager. And her identity was wrapped up in it with her friends, and so that's why it was more deeply entrenched in her life and the way she viewed things. She still believed in education, and in fact went back to Columbia University in New York, an Ivy League school, for her master's degree. And so she got her master's in public health nursing. So she was really an advocate for education, and her brother followed in her footsteps. He also got his bachelor's and master's and so on. And so she really believed in that, despite the fact that she was involved with the Jehovah's Witnesses. She didn't let that stop her from achieving her goals in terms of education. So I of course, as I said, I finished school and everything, and got involved, got married, and then there was a two-step process of me leaving. So the first time I was kind of doing a fade, and then about 7 years ago, my cousin contacted me from San Diego, Mrs. Pavey. She had been looking at all of these XJW websites. And so she called me and started telling me about what's going on, because she had not believed in the religion for years. She never said anything, because on my both sides of my family, they were witnesses. And I wasn't very close to my paternal relatives because of the dissolution of the marriage, that my mother went, with my father. And so because of that marriage, kind of going bust, those relatives were kind of like, I knew who they were, and I would see them occasionally because they were witnesses, right? So when I went to different, conventions and things over the years, I would see them, and they'd be cordial, but we didn't really have a relationship because of the tension of, my mother and my father, breaking up, getting divorced. So, but this one cousin managed to stay in contact with me off and on through the years, and she was the one who actually brought it to my attention about these websites. And so I started looking. I wasn't scared or anything. I said, I didn't even know. And so as I started doing some research, and I was like, wow, this is very interesting. And, realizing that there were so many falsehoods that we were taught, that was upsetting to me. And at that point, I was upset. I spent about 3 days grieving. I was, on and off with the tears, and saying, how could I have been misled to this level? I had no idea. And it was kind of strange, because it's not like I fully believed it, but at the same time, to know that I spent so many years, wow, doing this thing that I'm thinking is, we're children, right? And we follow what our parents tell us, but I'm spending all these years, even as an adult, part of my adulthood. So it did bother me, but I quickly recovered, because, as I said, I was already fading. I had already faded somewhat from the religion. I hadn't really been following it by that point 7 years ago. But at least now I started really examining, what is it that we were taught, so that really, that was really the second part of my really fully waking up. Because I kind of was halfway awake, with the fading thing, but now I was really like, whoa. And so from that time, when I started learning all of these falsehoods and things that we were taught that were untrue, I said, there is no way I will ever step foot in a Kingdom Hall again. Nope. It's one thing to say, okay, I don't really agree with the teachings and I don't really follow those teachings. It's another thing to find out that you were misled, and on top of that, all of the immoral behavior that's going on behind the scenes that most of us didn't know about. Because unless you're an elder, and those are all men, they're all men, unless you're an elder or maybe married to an elder, or you may hear some of the things that are going on, because it's natural that you sometimes you can't help it if you're living in an apartment or a small house or whatever, and your husband is carrying on these conversations, some of these phone conversations with people having issues and problems. It's natural that you're going to hear certain things. That's just the way it is, And so, I had heard little snippets of things, but I was a child and a youngster growing up, so I didn't really, I didn't hear deep details or anything, but I did hear things from time to time because my father's an elder, so it's just the way it is. And we live in a 2-bedroom apartment. You're going to hear things, at that time. So anyway, that is what happened. So I had a 2-step kind of awakening. And so this actually transpired over many years. The fading was several years, and then, like I said, only about 7 years ago is when my cousin had informed me about these websites, and so I started looking into it, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. So that's how things came about. And so I decided that, it's time to tell my story. And it's time to build a channel. And the channel that I'm building is not so much going to be about Jehovah's Witnesses. I will make a reference to it because obviously that's the only religion that I was ever truly exposed to in depth. I'm familiar with some other things that I've looked into just to look into. I've looked, it's just, really making a choice about what you want for your life. And so as a result, I decided that, I'll tell my XJW story. And I hope you'll come back here because I plan to put out many, many more videos. But my videos are going to be more focused on healing, because that's what is really needed more than ever before. With so many people coming to an understanding that they have been misled, that's a painful thing. It really is. And I truly believe that we're all here for a mission. Whatever, everybody's mission is different. But I truly believe that we are here for a mission. And I think my mission, in my case, is to help people with healing. And so that's what I aim to do. I've worked with a couple of people already. And I am willing to help those who need to find a way, a path toward freedom and joy, to come out of the mire of falsehood and leave that behind so that they can really fully claim their life and build the life that they want. That's why we're here. I really truly believe that, and I know that. So with that, I want to thank one person who's no longer with us, Raymond France. I mean, he is a true whistleblower. He was a leader. He was brave. He was courageous, despite all the negative nastiness that was told about him, that was totally untrue. And to think that the very people that claim to be God's chosen people would really drag his name through the mud, and at the same time claim that they're God's chosen people. That is just atrocious. I mean, that is awful. And so I want to thank him for what he did and having the courage to stand up despite knowing that he was going to be just put through a lot of unpleasant experiences as a result of his being courageous. So I thank him. And each of us need to be courageous. It took me a while to make the decision to make this channel. But it's time. It's time to stand up and not allow whatever, religions or whatever, to push you around and tell you how to be. You are to be free. Really, truly free. That is your birthright. So I will be talking about those topics. And I will be sharing with you. And I thank you for being here and listening. So, until next time, peace and blessing.